This baby isn't yours. The words cut through the wedding reception like a gunshot. 300 guests froze. The music died. Marcus stood there, champagne glass trembling in his hand, staring at his pregnant bride with pure venom in his eyes. Jasmine touched her swollen belly, 8 months pregnant in her white dress, and smiled, a small, sad smile that promised this was only the beginning. "Before you all judge me," she said quietly, "let me tell you how I got here. Welcome to Tino's Stories, where real-life drama unfolds and justice always finds its way. I'm Tino, and today's story will leave you speechless. This is about Jasmine, a woman who learned that sometimes the biggest revenge is simply telling the truth. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those notifications, because you won't want to miss a single moment of what happens next. Trust me, this story goes places you won't see coming. 2 hours earlier, everything had looked perfect. The Sterling Hotel ballroom sparkled with fairy lights and crystal chandeliers. White roses cascaded from every table. A 5-tier cake stood like a monument to love and commitment. The DJ played all the right songs, nothing too loud, nothing too quiet, just enough to keep people dancing and drinking and celebrating. Jasmine had walked down that aisle with her hand resting on her pregnant belly, wearing a custom dress that cost more than her entire year's rent. Her mother cried. Her grandmother smiled from her wheelchair. Her best friend Keisha stood at the altar in a lavender bridesmaid dress, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Marcus had looked so handsome in his tuxedo. So perfect. His smile had seemed genuine when he said, "I do." His kiss had tasted like mint and promise. For 2 hours, it had all been a fairy tale. Then reality crashed the party. It started small, Marcus checking his phone during their first dance. A text message that made his jaw tighten. Then another. Then a phone call he took outside, leaving Jasmine swaying alone on the dance floor while Etta James sang about love and devotion. When he came back inside, something had changed in his eyes. "We need to talk," he'd said, grabbing her elbow a little too tight. "Marcus, we're in the middle of our reception. Can it wait?" "No. It can't wait." He'd pulled her toward the cake table, away from the dancing guests but still visible to everyone. His mother, Diane Patterson, watched from the head table with an expression Jasmine couldn't quite read. Satisfaction, maybe. Or vindication. That's when Marcus had said it. "This baby isn't yours." Actually, that's not exactly what he'd said. What he'd said was, "I know the truth about that baby, Jasmine. I know what you did." But it might as well have been a confession broadcast on loudspeakers. Now, standing in front of 300 people with her dress wrinkled and her makeup starting to run from stress sweat, Jasmine felt the weight of every eye in the room. "Marcus." She kept her voice steady. "What are you talking about? Don't play games with me." He stepped closer, his voice rising. "My mother told me everything. She had you followed. She found out about the clinic visits, the secret meetings, the lies." Jasmine's heart hammered against her ribs. The baby kicked hard, sensing her distress. "Your mother had me followed?" Diane Patterson stood up from the head table, smoothing her purple dress. She was a tall woman, elegant and cold, the type who wore pearls to the grocery store and judged everyone she met within 30 seconds. She'd never liked Jasmine. Never thought she was good enough for her son. "I did what any mother would do," Diane announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I protected my son from a gold digger trying to trap him with another man's baby." The gasps were immediate. "Oh my God. Did she just say another man's baby?" Jasmine felt the room tilt. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Marcus grabbed her wrist. "Tell them the truth, Jasmine. Tell them whose baby you're really carrying." She looked at him, this man she'd agreed to marry despite everything he'd put her through. This man who'd abandoned her 6 months ago when she'd first told him about the pregnancy. This man who'd come crawling back 8 weeks ago with tears and apologies and promises that he'd changed. She'd known then that something was wrong. Known that his sudden return didn't make sense. But she'd been so tired. So alone. So desperate for things to be okay. Now she understood. It had all been a setup. "Let go of me," she said quietly. "Not until you admit." I said, "Let go of me." Something in her voice made him release her wrist. Maybe it was the steel underneath the softness. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, not with fear or shame, but with something that looked almost like pity. Jasmine turned to face the crowd. Her mother had half risen from her seat, looking terrified. Keisha was already pushing through the guests, trying to reach her. Her grandmother sat perfectly still, watching everything with ancient, knowing eyes. "You want the truth?" Jasmine asked the room. "You want to know about this baby?" "Jasmine, don't," her mother called out. "Baby, you don't have to do this here." "Yes, I do, Mama. Because if I don't, his version becomes the only version. And his version is designed to destroy me." She placed both hands on her belly, feeling the life moving inside her. The baby she'd carried through fear and uncertainty. The baby she'd protected when no one else would. The baby that had changed her life in ways she was only beginning to understand. 6 months ago, she began, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "I told Marcus I was pregnant. We weren't married. We'd been dating for 2 years, living together for 1. I thought he'd be happy. I thought we'd figure it out together." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. His groomsmen watched him, confused. "Instead, he told me to get rid of it. Said a baby would ruin his plans. Ruin his career. Ruin his life." She paused, letting that sink in. "When I said no, he kicked me out of our apartment. Changed the locks. Blocked my number. Within a week, he was posting pictures with other women." "That's not," Marcus started, but his voice cracked. "I have the text messages," Jasmine continued. "I have the voicemails where you called me every name in the book. I have bank records showing you stopped paying half the rent we'd agreed to split. I have witnesses who saw you at clubs and restaurants with at least 3 different women while I was sleeping on my mother's couch." The guests were whispering now, a low murmur of shock and judgment that wasn't directed at Jasmine anymore. Diane Patterson's face had gone tight. "That doesn't excuse what you did. That doesn't change the fact that you..." "That I what, Mrs. Patterson?" Jasmine turned to face her mother-in-law directly. "That I survived? That I worked 2 jobs while pregnant to pay my bills? That I went to prenatal appointments alone and cried myself to sleep wondering how I was going to raise a baby by myself?" "You seduced someone else," Diane hissed. "You got pregnant by another man and tried to pass the baby off as my son's." The room erupted in whispers. Jasmine laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Is that what you told him? Is that the story you created? It's the truth." "No." Jasmine shook her head slowly. "It's a lie. A convenient lie that makes me the villain and Marcus the victim. But the actual truth?" She looked around the ballroom. "The actual truth is so much more complicated than that." Marcus stepped forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "Jasmine, if you have proof that I'm the father, just show it. Show them the DNA test and we can." "There is no DNA test, Marcus." Silence. "What?" His face went pale. "There's no DNA test because I never had one done. I never needed one." She met his eyes. "Because I already know exactly who the father is. I've always known." "Then why?" He looked genuinely confused now. "Why did you let my mother convince me?" "Because your mother didn't convince you of anything you didn't already want to believe." Jasmine's voice was soft but cutting. "She gave you an excuse to doubt me. A reason to justify whatever you were planning to do. And you grabbed it with both hands because it was easier than admitting the truth about yourself." Diane's hands clenched into fists. "You ungrateful." "I'm not ungrateful, Mrs. Patterson. I'm just done pretending." Jasmine reached into the hidden pocket of her dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was worn at the edges, like she'd looked at it many times. 2 months ago, Marcus showed up at my door. He was crying. Said he'd made a terrible mistake. Said he loved me and wanted to be a father. Said he'd spend the rest of his life making it up to me. She unfolded the paper slowly. I didn't believe him. But I was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and scared. So I asked him one question. Marcus swallowed hard. Jasmine. I asked him, why now? Why come back now after all this time? She looked up from the paper. Do you remember what you said? He didn't answer. You said, because I realized I can't live without you. Because I love you. Because I want to be there for you and our baby. She smiled that sad smile again. It was a beautiful speech. Very convincing. Except for one small problem. She held up the paper so the front row of guests could see it. It was a printed email. 2 days before you showed up at my door, your mother sent you this email. I know because you left your laptop open at my apartment and I saw it. She began to read aloud. Marcus, you need to fix this situation before it damages your reputation. Marry the girl, legitimize the child, and we'll handle the rest after the baby is born. Think of your career. Think of the family name. The whispers exploded into full conversations now. People weren't even trying to hide their shock. Marcus lunged for the paper, but Jasmine stepped back. Don't. You went through my private emails? You left your laptop open with the screen facing me. I didn't go through anything. I just saw what was right in front of my face. She folded the paper and put it back in her pocket. That's when I understood. You didn't come back because you loved me. You came back because your mother told you to clean up your mess. That's not true, Marcus said weakly. Then why did you propose 3 days later? Why the rush to get married before the baby was born? Why did your mother insist on paying for everything and controlling every detail of this wedding? Jasmine gestured around the ballroom. This whole thing has been about managing your image. About making sure people see you as a good man who stood by his woman instead of the truth, that you're a coward who abandoned your pregnant girlfriend and only came back when mommy told you to. Diane was shaking with rage. How dare you speak to my son like that? How dare you? I dare because I'm done being afraid of you. Jasmine turned to face her mother-in-law fully. I'm done letting you make me feel small and worthless and lucky just to be in your son's presence. I'm done pretending this wedding was about love instead of damage control. She looked back at Marcus. You want to know about this baby? You want to know if it's yours? He nodded, looking like a child caught in a lie. It is yours, Marcus. Every test, every doctor's visit, every milestone, it's your baby. Your DNA. Your responsibility. She paused. But here's the thing you don't understand. Here's the part that your mother's private investigators didn't figure out. The room leaned forward. This baby might be biologically yours, but you lost the right to be its father the day you kicked me out. You lost that right when you called me terrible names and told me I was ruining your life. You lost it when you blocked me and pretended I didn't exist. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice stayed strong. So yeah, you can have your DNA test. You can prove to everyone in this room that you're the biological father. But that's all you'll ever be, biology. Because being a father takes more than DNA. It takes showing up. It takes sacrifice. It takes love. She wiped her eyes. And you have none of those things to give. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. Around the room, women were nodding. Men were looking uncomfortable. Someone was definitely crying. This marriage is over before it started, Jasmine said quietly. I'm leaving. I'm going to raise this baby alone, just like I've been planning to do all along. And you and your mother can tell whatever story you want about me. Call me a gold digger. Call me a liar. Call me whatever makes you sleep better at night. She started to walk away, but Marcus grabbed her arm again. Wait. Just wait. If the baby is mine, then why did my mother's investigator say? Jasmine looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Maybe you should ask your mother what she really had her investigator doing. Because I never met with any other man. I never went to any secret appointments. The only suspicious activity I engaged in was trying to survive. She pulled her arm free and walked toward the exit. Keisha immediately fell in step beside her, glaring at anyone who looked like they might try to stop them. Jasmine's mother and grandmother weren't far behind. Behind them, the ballroom erupted into chaos. People shouting questions. Marcus calling after Jasmine. Diane trying to control the narrative. Cell phones recording everything. But Jasmine didn't look back. She walked out of that ballroom with her head high, one hand on her belly, protecting the life inside her. The fairy tale was over. Now the real story could begin. Scene fades. Outside the hotel, Jasmine finally let herself collapse against the wall. Her mother and Keisha surrounded her immediately, checking on her, asking if she was okay, if the baby was okay. "I'm fine," she whispered. I need a minute." "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen," Keisha said, squeezing her hand. "Girl, you just became a legend. I just ruined my wedding and probably destroyed any chance of Marcus being involved in this baby's life." "Marcus ruined his own chances," her mother said firmly. "You just told the truth. There's no shame in that." Jasmine closed her eyes, feeling the baby kick. Strong, steady kicks that reminded her why she'd survived the last 6 months. Why she'd agreed to this sham of a wedding in the first place. Because she had a plan. A plan that involved more than just exposing Marcus's lies. A plan that started with a mysterious woman outside a clinic and ended with, well, she wasn't sure yet. But she knew it was bigger than just her. Bigger than this baby. Bigger than anyone in that ballroom realized. "What are you thinking about?" her grandmother asked softly. The old woman was the only one who seemed to sense there was more to this story. Jasmine opened her eyes and looked at the hotel entrance, half expecting Marcus to come running after her. He didn't. "I'm thinking," she said slowly, "that tonight was just the beginning. The secret I'm carrying, it's not about who the father is. It's about who this baby is going to be. What this baby represents." "What do you mean?" Keisha asked, confused. Jasmine smiled, a real smile this time. "You'll see. We all will. But first, I need to tell you about what happened when Marcus first abandoned me. About the woman who found me. About the warning she gave me." She touched her belly again. "About why I knew that marrying Marcus was the only way to set everything in motion." "You're scaring me," her mother admitted. "Don't be scared, Mama. This isn't a scary story." Jasmine looked up at the stars. "This is a story about justice. About destiny. About what happens when you push a woman too far and she discovers she's stronger than anyone, including herself, ever knew." Thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was coming. But Jasmine wasn't afraid of storms anymore. She had become one. But wait, who was that mysterious woman Jasmine mentioned? What warning did she give her at the clinic? And what does Jasmine mean when she says this baby represents something bigger? If you want to know what really happened during those 6 months when Marcus abandoned her, and why Jasmine agreed to marry a man she doesn't love, make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on. Because what comes next will blow your mind. This is Tino, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. 6 months earlier. Jasmine sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the plastic stick in her hand. 2 pink lines. Clear as day. Undeniable. Pregnant. Her hands trembled as she set the test down on the sink counter next to the other 3 she'd taken that morning. All positive. All screaming the same truth she wasn't ready to face. She was 28 years old, working as a junior marketing coordinator, living with her boyfriend in a decent apartment in a decent neighborhood, making decent money. They'd talked about marriage someday. Kids someday. A house with a backyard someday. But someday wasn't supposed to be today. "Marcus," she called out, her voice shaky. He was in the living room, probably playing video games or scrolling through his phone. It was a Saturday morning, his day off from the consulting firm where he worked 60-hour weeks and dreamed of making partner before 35. "Yeah," he called back, distracted. "Can you come here for a second? Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something." Jasmine looked down at the test again. At the 2 pink lines that had just changed everything. "No," she said quietly. "It can't wait." She heard him sigh, heard the couch creak as he stood up, heard his footsteps approaching the bathroom. When he appeared in the doorway, he was still looking at his phone, typing something. "What's up?" Jasmine held up the pregnancy test. Marcus looked up from his phone. His eyes went to the test, then to her face, then back to the test. For a long moment, he just stood there, frozen. Is that real? I took 4 of them. They're all positive." He stepped into the bathroom, took the test from her hand, examined it like it might be defective. Like if he looked hard enough, those 2 lines might disappear. "How did this happen?" "The usual way, Marcus. But you're on birth control. Birth control isn't 100% effective. You know that." He set the test down on the counter, ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he made when he was stressed. Okay. We need to think about this rationally." Something about the word rationally made Jasmine's stomach clench. "What do you mean?" "I mean we need to think about our options." "Options?" "Jasmine, come on. You know what I mean." He looked at her, and his expression was already distant, already calculating. "We're not ready for this. You're barely making $40,000 a year. I'm drowning in student loans. We're not even engaged yet. So what are you saying?" He didn't answer right away. He walked out of the bathroom, paced into the bedroom, paced back. Jasmine stayed sitting on the edge of the tub, watching him unravel. "I'm saying," he finally said, "that maybe this isn't the right time." "There's never a right time, Marcus. That's what people say. People who are ready to have kids say that. We're not ready." He stopped pacing, looked at her directly. "I'm not ready." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. "So you want me to get rid of it?" "I want us to make a smart decision about our future." "That's not an answer." "Yes, Jasmine. I think we should terminate the pregnancy." He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "We can try again in a few years when we're in a better place financially and emotionally." Jasmine felt something crack inside her chest. She'd known Marcus for 3 years, lived with him for 1, loved him, or thought she loved him, through good days and bad. But in that moment, looking at his face, she realized she'd never really known him at all. "I'm not doing that," she said quietly. "What?" "I said I'm not doing that. I'm keeping the baby." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Jasmine, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. I'm being the only reasonable person in this bathroom right now." She stood up, surprised by how steady her legs felt. "This is happening, Marcus. I'm pregnant. And I'm keeping this baby. The only question is whether you're going to be part of it or not. That's not fair. What's not fair is you acting like this pregnancy is some kind of mistake that needs to be erased. What's not fair is you making me feel like I did something wrong when we both know how babies are made. I didn't say you did anything wrong." "Then what are you saying?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I'm saying I can't do this right now. I'm up for a promotion. I'm finally getting ahead at work. A baby would derail everything. A baby. Not our baby. Just a baby. Like it's some abstract concept instead of an actual life. You know what I mean." "Yeah, Marcus. I know exactly what you mean. Jasmine pushed past him, walked into the bedroom, grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from anger. From heartbreak. From the dawning realization that the man she'd built a life with would abandon her the moment that life became complicated. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Out. I need air." "Jasmine, wait. Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. You made your position clear." She grabbed her purse, her keys, slipped on her shoes. "I'm keeping the baby. You don't want to be a father. So that's that." "I didn't say I don't want to be a father." "Yes, you did. You just said it in corporate speak so you could feel better about yourself." She turned to face him one last time before leaving. "I'm going to my mom's house. Don't call me unless you figure out what you really want." She walked out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the parking lot. It wasn't until she was sitting in her car with the door locked that she let herself cry. That was on Saturday. By Monday, Marcus had made his decision. Jasmine came home from work to find him packing boxes in the bedroom. Not her things. His things. "What are you doing?" she asked from the doorway. "I think we need some space," he said without looking at her. "Space?" "Yeah. To figure things out." "You're leaving." "I'm staying at David's place for a while." David was his college roommate, a finance bro who threw parties every weekend and treated women like accessories. "Just until we both cool down and can think clearly." Jasmine watched him fold a shirt, place it in a box. "You're really doing this? You're really leaving because I won't get an abortion?" "Don't make it sound like that." "That's exactly what it is, Marcus. You gave me an ultimatum, the baby or you. I chose the baby. Now you're running." He finally looked at her. "I'm not running. I just need time to process this." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few weeks. Maybe a month." "A month?" "Yes." Jasmine felt something inside her go cold and hard. "If you walk out that door right now, don't bother coming back." Marcus paused mid-fold. "You don't mean that." "I absolutely mean it. If you leave me now, while I'm pregnant with your child, then we're done. Completely done. No second chances. No, I've had time to think, phone calls. Done." He stared at her for a long moment. She could see him weighing his options, calculating the cost-benefit analysis of staying versus leaving. It was the same look he got when he was deciding whether to take on a new project at work. That look told her everything she needed to know. "I'm sorry, Jasmine," he said quietly. "But I can't do this right now." He picked up the box and walked past her, out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, out of her life. She heard his car start. Heard him drive away. Then she sat on the floor of their bedroom and cried until she had nothing left. The next 2 weeks were a blur of pain and practicality. Marcus changed his phone number. Blocked her on social media. Moved his things out of the apartment while she was at work, leaving a note that said he'd paid his half of the rent through the end of the month, but after that, she was on her own. Jasmine called her mother in tears. "Come home, baby," her mother said. "Come stay with us until you figure things out." "Mom, I'm 28 years old. I can't move back home." "You're 28 and pregnant and alone. Pride isn't going to pay your bills." She was right. The apartment rent was $1,800 a month. Jasmine's salary barely covered her share plus utilities, groceries, and her car payment. Without Marcus's income, she'd be homeless in 2 months. So she swallowed her pride and moved back into her childhood bedroom in her mother's small house in Queens. Her mother, Patricia, was a school secretary who'd raised Jasmine alone after Jasmine's father died when she was 7. She didn't have much, but what she had, she shared freely. The house was cramped, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in at once. But it was warm. It was safe. It was home. You're going to be okay, Patricia said the night Jasmine moved in, holding her daughter while she cried on the couch. That boy is a fool, but you're going to be okay. Jasmine's grandmother, Dorothy, lived in the apartment downstairs. She was 79 years old, sharp as a tack, and didn't believe in sugarcoating anything. Men like that always run when things get hard, Dorothy said the next morning over breakfast. Your grandfather stayed. Raised 4 children through poverty and sickness and hard times. But men today? They want all the fun with none of the responsibility. Not all men, Grandma. No, not all. But the one you chose? He's the running type. You're better off without him. Jasmine wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Because deep down, she knew her grandmother was right. The weeks turned into months. Jasmine went to her prenatal appointments alone. Saw the ultrasound alone. Heard the heartbeat alone. Felt the first kicks alone. She worked 2 jobs, her regular marketing job during the day and weekend shifts at a retail store in the evenings. The money still wasn't enough. She ate ramen noodles and canned soup. She wore the same maternity clothes over and over because she couldn't afford new ones. She cried in the shower where her mother couldn't hear her. People stared at her in public. A pregnant woman without a ring, without a man, without any visible support system. She could feel their judgment like a physical weight. The church ladies whispered. Such a shame. So young. Should have been more careful. Her co-workers asked intrusive questions. Where's the father? Are you going to raise it alone? Don't you think it's selfish to have a baby you can't afford? Strangers felt entitled to comment. You're so brave. I could never do it alone. Must be hard. She smiled and nodded and kept moving forward because what else could she do? At night, lying in her childhood bed with her hand on her growing belly, she talked to the baby. It's just going to be us, she whispered. You and me against the world. But we're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but we're going to figure it out. The baby kicked in response, as if to say, I believe you. Then, one day in her 6th month, everything changed. Jasmine was leaving her prenatal appointment at the community health clinic when a woman approached her in the parking lot. The woman was maybe 60 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and warm brown eyes that seemed to see right through her. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a cardigan, but carried herself with a quiet dignity that made Jasmine pause. Excuse me, the woman said gently. I hope you don't think I'm being forward, but I couldn't help noticing you in the waiting room. Jasmine instinctively put her hand on her belly, protective. Can I help you? Actually, I think I might be able to help you. The woman smiled, a kind smile that held no judgment. My name is Ruth. I work with an organization that helps women in difficult situations. I'm not interested in charity, Jasmine said quickly, defensively. This isn't charity, sweetheart. And I'm not here to offer you anything except some words of wisdom, if you'll hear them. Something about the woman's tone made Jasmine stop moving toward her car. What kind of wisdom? Ruth looked at Jasmine's belly, then back at her face. When that child arrives, destinies will change. Not just yours. Everyone's. Jasmine frowned. What does that mean? It means you're carrying something more precious than you realize. Something that's going to shift the balance of things that have been out of balance for a long time. Are you some kind of prophet or something? Ruth laughed, a warm sound. No, honey. I'm just someone who's lived long enough to recognize when a life is about to take a significant turn. She reached into her purse and pulled out a card. When you're ready, and you'll know when you're ready, call this number. Ask for Ruth. We'll talk more then. Talk about what? About your options. About your future. About what that baby really represents. Ruth pressed the card into Jasmine's hand. You're stronger than you know, Jasmine. And you're not as alone as you think. How do you know my name? But Ruth was already walking away, heading toward a dark sedan parked at the far end of the lot. Jasmine looked down at the card. It was plain white with a phone number and nothing else. No organization name. No address. Just 10 digits and the name, Ruth, written in elegant script. She stood there in the parking lot for a long moment, feeling the baby kick, feeling the October wind blow cold against her face, feeling like her life had just tilted on some invisible axis. Then she got in her car, put the card in her purse, and drove back to her mother's house. She didn't call the number that day. Or the next day. Or the day after that. But she didn't throw the card away either. And late at night, when she couldn't sleep, when the fear and uncertainty pressed down on her like a physical weight, she'd take the card out and look at it, wondering what Ruth had meant. What did her baby represent? How could one child change everyone's destiny? And why did Ruth look at her with such certainty, as if she knew something about Jasmine's future that Jasmine herself didn't know? At 7 months pregnant, Jasmine lost her retail job. The manager said it was because of performance issues, but Jasmine knew the truth. They didn't want a heavily pregnant woman working the floor, scaring away customers with the reality of her situation. She cried in her car for 20 minutes, then drove home and told her mother. "We'll figure it out," Patricia said, but Jasmine could hear the worry in her voice. The bills were piling up. The baby was coming in 2 months. Jasmine's savings account had exactly $342 in it. That night, she took Ruth's card out of her purse and stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. A woman answered on the second ring. "Hello? Is this Ruth?" "It is." "Who's calling?" "My name is Jasmine. We met at the clinic about a month ago. You gave me your card and said to call when I was ready." There was a pause, then, yes. "Jasmine. I've been waiting for your call." "You have?" "I had a feeling you'd reach out eventually. These things have a way of happening when they're supposed to." Ruth's voice was warm, reassuring. "Are you somewhere private where we can talk?" Jasmine looked around her childhood bedroom, at the faded posters on the walls, at the twin bed she'd slept in since she was 10. "Yeah. I'm private." "Good. Then let me tell you what I couldn't tell you in that parking lot. Let me tell you why your baby is so important. And let me explain why the man who abandoned you is going to come back, and why you need to be ready when he does." Jasmine sat down on the edge of her bed, her hand on her belly, and listened as Ruth explained everything. By the time the call ended an hour later, Jasmine understood. She understood why Marcus had left. She understood why he would return. And she understood exactly what she needed to do when that happened. The baby kicked hard, as if agreeing with the plan. "Okay," Jasmine whispered, talking to her unborn child. "Okay. We can do this." For the first time in months, she felt something other than fear. She felt power. Marcus didn't come back out of guilt. He came back because his mother made him. It happened 8 weeks before the wedding, when Jasmine was 7 months pregnant and had just gotten off the phone with Ruth. She was lying in bed, processing everything Ruth had told her, trying to figure out how she was going to execute the plan, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Telemarketers and scammers had been calling constantly, trying to sell her things she couldn't afford. But something made her pick up. "Hello? Jasmine?" The voice was familiar, broken, desperate. "Jasmine, it's me. It's Marcus." Her heart stopped. For 6 months, she'd heard nothing from him. 6 months of silence. 6 months of abandonment. And now, suddenly, he was calling. "How did you get this number?" "I called your mom. She gave it to me." "Jasmine, please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." She should have hung up. Should have blocked the number and moved on with her life. But Ruth's words were still fresh in her mind. "He's going to come back. When he does, you need to let him think he's in control." So she stayed on the line. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want to apologize. I want to tell you that I made the biggest mistake of my life. His voice cracked. I want to be there for you and the baby. If you'll let me. Jasmine sat up in bed, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. The baby was kicking, restless. You're 6 months too late. I know. I am. But I've been thinking about you every day. About the baby. About what I threw away. He sounded like he was crying. Jasmine, I love you. I never stopped loving you. The words should have melted her. Should have made her cry with relief. 6 months ago, they would have. But 6 months ago, she'd been a different person. Where is this coming from, Marcus? Why now? Because I realized I can't live without you. Because I've been miserable every single day since I left. Because I want to be a father to our child. It was a good speech. Convincing. Emotional. The kind of thing that would work on someone who hadn't spent months being rebuilt from the ground up by hardship. But Jasmine had learned to hear what people weren't saying. Did something happen? She asked carefully. What? No. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Anne. Marcus. Her voice was firm now. Did something happen that made you suddenly want to come back? Silence. Then, my mom suggested I reach out. She said it's not right for a man to abandon his responsibilities. There it was. The truth hiding under all those pretty words. His mother. Diane Patterson, who had never liked Jasmine, who had made it clear from day one that her son deserved better, who had probably thrown a party when Marcus came home and said he was leaving. Now she was telling him to come back. Your mother suggested it, Jasmine repeated slowly. She made me realize I was being selfish. That I was thinking about my career instead of my family. Marcus's voice gained confidence, like he thought he was winning. She helped me see that being a father is the most important job I'll ever have. Jasmine wanted to laugh. Wanted to scream. Wanted to tell him exactly what she thought of his sudden change of heart. But Ruth's voice echoed in her mind, let him come back. Let him think he's won. You're going to need him to play his part. So instead, she said, I need time to think about this. Of course. Of course. Take all the time you need. He sounded relieved, like he'd expected her to slam the door in his face. Can I see you? Can we meet somewhere and talk? Not yet. I'll call you when I'm ready. Okay. Okay, that's fair. Jasmine, I just want you to know, I'm going to prove to you that I've changed. I'm going to be the man you deserve. The father our baby deserves. She hung up without saying goodbye. Then she sat there in the dark, feeling the baby kick, feeling the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. Ruth had been right. Marcus was coming back. The question was, why did his mother want him to? The answer came 3 days later. Jasmine's best friend Keisha had connections everywhere. Her cousin worked at the consulting firm where Marcus was employed. Her aunt was a paralegal who knew everyone in their social circle. Her brother ran in the same gym crowd as Marcus's friends. When Jasmine asked Keisha to find out what was really going on with Marcus, Keisha came back with a file thick enough to choke on. They met at a coffee shop in Manhattan, far enough from Queens that they wouldn't run into anyone they knew. Girl, Keisha said, sliding the folder across the table. Your baby daddy is messier than I thought. Jasmine opened the folder. Inside were printouts of social media posts, text message screenshots, photos, and handwritten notes from Keisha's various sources. The first photo showed Marcus at a club with his arm around a blonde woman in a tight red dress. The date stamp said it was taken 3 weeks after he'd left Jasmine. The second photo showed him kissing the same woman outside a restaurant. The third showed them together at what looked like a company holiday party. Her name is Vanessa Chin, Keisha said, sipping her latte. She works in his department. According to my cousin, they've been dating since October. Pretty serious, apparently. She's been to his apartment, met his friends, the whole thing. Jasmine's hands tightened on the folder. He's still with her? That's the interesting part. Keisha leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, something changed. Marcus suddenly started pulling away from Vanessa. Canceling dates, being distant, acting weird. Vanessa's been texting my cousin asking what she did wrong. 2 weeks ago. Right before he called me. Exactly. Keisha pulled out another document. This one looked like a printout of an email. This is where it gets really good. My aunt's friend is the secretary at Marcus's mom's law office. She accidentally left some papers near the copy machine. Papers about you. Jasmine looked at the email. It was from Diane Patterson to Marcus, dated 2.5 weeks ago. Marcus. We need to discuss your situation with Jasmine Robinson. I've consulted with several colleagues, and the consensus is clear. You need to legitimize this child before it's born. If you don't, you'll be vulnerable to child support claims that could damage your financial future and professional reputation. I know you have feelings for Vanessa, but that relationship needs to end immediately. Vanessa comes from a good family, but she's not pregnant with your child. Jasmine is. And like it or not, that child is going to be born in 2 months. Here's what we're going to do. 1. You will call Jasmine and apologize. 2. You will convince her to marry you before the baby is born. 3. We will pay for a small, tasteful wedding. 4. Once the baby is born and you're legally married, we'll reassess the situation. This isn't about love, Marcus. This is about protecting your future. A man who abandons his pregnant girlfriend looks terrible to clients, to partners, to everyone who matters in your career. A man who steps up and marries the mother of his child looks responsible and mature. We'll handle everything. You just need to play your part. Think of it as a temporary arrangement until we figure out a more permanent solution. Call me when you're ready to discuss details. Mom. Jasmine read the email 3 times, each time feeling her anger grow hotter. A temporary arrangement. Play your part. Handle everything. There's more, Keisha said quietly. She pulled out another photo. This one showed Marcus and his mother having lunch at an upscale restaurant. My aunt's friends saw them together last week. She said Diane was doing most of the talking. Marcus looked miserable. He's being controlled by his mother. Completely. And get this, Keisha pulled out one more document. This is the kicker. My cousin overheard Marcus on the phone with his boy David. Marcus said, and I quote, "My mom says I just need to marry her, get my name on the birth certificate, and then we can figure out custody arrangements after. She thinks Jasmine will be reasonable if we offer her some money." Jasmine felt something cold settle in her chest. They're planning to take my baby. It looks that way. Diane probably figures once you're married and the baby's born, she can convince Marcus to file for full custody. Paint you as unstable or unfit or whatever. Rich people do it all the time. That's why she's paying for everything. That's why she's pushing for a quick wedding. Jasmine closed the folder, her mind racing. She wants legal control before the baby comes. So what are you going to do? Jasmine thought about Ruth. About the plan they discussed. About the secret she was carrying that no one, not Marcus, not his mother, not anyone except Ruth and a handful of people, knew about. I'm going to let him come back, she said slowly. What? Girl, are you crazy? No. I'm strategic. Jasmine met her friend's eyes. If I reject him now, Diane will find another way to come after me and the baby. But if I let him back in, if I play along with their plan, I'll have the upper hand when the time comes. Jasmine, that's dangerous. What if they actually try to take your baby? They won't. Because I know something they don't know. Jasmine touched her belly. Something that's going to change everything when it comes out. What are you talking about? I can't tell you yet. But trust me, Keisha. By the time this is over, Marcus and his mother are going to regret ever underestimating me. Keisha studied her friend's face. You're different. You know that? 6 months ago, you would have fallen apart over this. Now you're plotting like some kind of chess master. 6 months ago, I was soft. I believed in love and happy endings and good people. Jasmine's voice hardened. Now I believe in survival. And I believe in making sure my child never has to fight the battles I've fought. She stood up, tucking the folder under her arm. Thank you for this. Seriously. You're a better friend than I deserve. Just promise me you know what you're doing. I promise. But as Jasmine walked out of that coffee shop, folder in hand and baby kicking in her belly, she wasn't entirely sure she did know what she was doing. She was improvising. Adapting. Using every piece of information she had to build a strategy that would protect her child. And if that meant marrying a man she didn't love, walking down an aisle toward a future built on lies, standing in front of 300 people and pretending everything was perfect, then that's what she would do. Because the secret Ruth had told her was bigger than her pride. Bigger than her heartbreak. Bigger than anything Marcus or his mother could possibly imagine. 3 days after seeing the emails, Jasmine called Marcus back. I've thought about it, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'm willing to give you another chance. For the baby's sake. Marcus exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Thank you. God, Jasmine, thank you. You won't regret this. I promise. I have conditions. Anything. Name it. We take things slow. I'm not moving back in with you right away. We date properly. We rebuild trust. Of course. Whatever you need. And Marcus? She paused for effect. If you hurt me again, if you leave me again, I will make sure you never see this baby. Ever. Are we clear? Crystal clear. I swear on everything, Jasmine. I'm here to stay. She hung up and immediately called Ruth. He took the bait, Jasmine said. Good. Ruth's voice was calm, unsurprised. Now comes the hard part. You need to prepare for what's coming. Do you have the documents I told you about? I'm picking them up tomorrow. And you haven't told anyone? Not your mother, not your friends? No one except you knows. Keep it that way. The element of surprise is your greatest weapon. Ruth paused. How are you feeling? Emotionally? Jasmine looked down at her swollen belly. At 7 months, the baby was active, constantly moving, reminding her why she was doing all of this. I feel strong, she said honestly. Scared, but strong. That's exactly how you should feel. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember, when the moment comes, you cannot hesitate. You have to be willing to burn everything down. I will be. I know you will, sweetheart. You're tougher than you think. After they hung up, Jasmine sat in her childhood bedroom and allowed herself one moment of doubt. One moment of wondering if she was doing the right thing. One moment of wishing things could have been different. Then she stood up, straightened her spine, and got to work. The next morning, Jasmine took the subway into Manhattan. The address Ruth had given her led to a medical building in Midtown, the kind of place with marble floors and expensive artwork and doctors who didn't take insurance. She felt out of place in her Target maternity jeans and stretched out sweater, but she walked through the lobby like she belonged there. 8th floor. Suite 802. Dr. Sarah Chen, genetic specialist. The receptionist smiled when Jasmine approached. You must be Jasmine Robinson. Dr. Chen is expecting you. She was led to a private office where a woman in her 50s sat behind a sleek desk. Dr. Chen had kind eyes behind frameless glasses and the calm demeanor of someone who dealt with life-changing information every day. Please, sit. Dr. Chen gestured to the chair across from her. Ruth told me about your situation. I have to say, it's one of the more unusual cases I've been involved with. Can I see them? Jasmine asked. The results? Dr. Chen pulled a manila folder from her desk drawer and slid it across. Everything is in here. Test results, genetic markers, DNA analysis, medical projections. I've also included a letter on official letterhead explaining the findings in layman's terms, in case you need to present this to anyone. Jasmine opened the folder with shaking hands. The first page was dense with medical terminology she barely understood. Words like genetic markers, and hereditary indicators, and paternal lineage confirmation. But as she flipped through the pages, one section caught her eye, a highlighted paragraph that Ruth had told her to look for. Subject exhibits rare genetic markers consistent with hereditary condition traced through paternal bloodline. DNA analysis confirms 99.9% probability of paternal match to reference sample provided. Medical recommendation: full disclosure to relevant family members advised due to hereditary health implications. Jasmine looked up at Dr. Chen. So it's confirmed? There's no mistake. No mistake. The genetic markers are conclusive. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Jasmine, I want to make sure you understand what you're holding. This information could have serious legal and social ramifications. Are you certain you want to move forward with disclosing this? I'm certain. Ruth explained the context to me. The father who abandoned you, his family's wealth and influence, their plans to control you through marriage. Dr. Chen's expression was sympathetic but professional. I just want you to know, once you reveal this, there's no taking it back. Lives will change. Not just yours. I know. Jasmine closed the folder and held it against her chest. That's exactly what needs to happen. Dr. Chen studied her for a long moment. You're braver than most women I meet in your position. Most would take a settlement and disappear. I'm not most women. Not anymore. No, Dr. Chen agreed. You're not. Jasmine left the office with the folder tucked safely in her bag. On the subway ride home, she kept her hand on it, feeling the weight of what it represented. This folder was a bomb. And she was going to detonate it at exactly the right moment. Marcus started courting her like they were teenagers. Flowers delivered to her mother's house. Dinner dates at nice restaurants. Walks in the park where he held her hand and talked about baby names and nursery colors. He was attentive, apologetic, everything she'd needed him to be 6 months ago. His friends noticed the change. They started posting photos together again, Marcus with his arm around pregnant Jasmine, both of them smiling for the camera. The narrative was shifting, from deadbeat who abandoned his pregnant girlfriend, to devoted man who realized his mistake and stepped up. Diane orchestrated everything from behind the scenes. She insisted on meeting Jasmine for lunch, just the two women, no Marcus. They met at a French bistro in Manhattan where the cheapest salad cost $28. I want to apologize for any tension between us, Diane said, cutting into her Nicoise salad with surgical precision. I was protective of Marcus. Perhaps too protective. But I see now that you're good for him. Jasmine sipped her water and said nothing. I'd like to help with the baby expenses, Diane continued. Maternity clothes, medical bills, whatever you need. And once the baby is born, we can set up a trust fund. Make sure the child has every advantage. That's very generous. It's what family does. Diane smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm also thinking we should expedite the wedding. Before the baby comes. It would be lovely for the child to be born into a married family, don't you think? There it was. The real agenda. Marcus and I haven't even discussed marriage yet, Jasmine said carefully. Haven't you? I assumed that's where this was heading. Marcus is very committed to making this work. We're taking things slow. Of course, of course. But time is a factor, dear. Diane dabbed her mouth with her napkin. You're 7 months along. If you wanted a proper wedding, we'd need to start planning immediately. I have a wedding planner I've worked with before. She's a miracle worker. Could pull something together in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Right before the baby was due. Jasmine felt the baby kick hard, as if in protest. I'll talk to Marcus about it, she said. Please do. And Jasmine? Diane's voice took on a sharper edge. I want you to know that I'm genuinely happy you're giving my son another chance. But I'm also a practical woman. I believe in protecting my family. So I hope you understand that if things don't work out between you and Marcus, we'll need to come to an arrangement regarding custody and financial support. The threat was wrapped in silk, but it was still a threat. Are you saying you'd try to take my baby? I'm saying we'd want to ensure the child has the best possible life. Marcus comes from a family of means. We can provide opportunities you simply can't. Private schools, connections, a future without struggle. Diane's smile was cold now. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm being realistic. If you and Marcus separate after the baby is born, we'll fight for custody. And we'll win. Jasmine set down her water glass carefully. Is that what this whole reconciliation is about? Getting Marcus's name on the birth certificate so you can take my baby? Don't be dramatic. It's about doing what's best for the child. The child who's inside me right now. The child I've carried alone for 7 months. The child I've protected and provided for while your son was out partying with other women. Diane's jaw tightened. Marcus made mistakes. But he's here now. That's what matters. No, Mrs. Patterson. What matters is that you think you can manipulate me into giving up my child. Jasmine leaned forward. But here's what you don't understand. I didn't agree to give Marcus another chance because I love him. I don't. I agreed because I needed to see exactly what you were planning. Excuse me? You heard me. I know about the emails. I know about the temporary arrangement. I know this whole thing is a setup to steal my baby. Jasmine stood up, her hand on her belly. But here's the thing you don't know, Mrs. Patterson. I have information about this baby that's going to change everything. Information that makes all your plans worthless. Diane's face had gone pale. What are you talking about? You'll find out soon enough. At the wedding you're so desperate to plan. In front of all your society friends and business associates. In front of everyone who matters to you. Jasmine grabbed her purse. Thank you for lunch. I'll be sure to tell Marcus how supportive his mother is. She walked out of the restaurant, leaving Diane sitting there with her mouth slightly open. It was reckless. Stupid, even. Showing her cards before the final play. But God, it felt good. That night, Marcus called her, angry. My mother said you threatened her at lunch. What the hell, Jasmine? I didn't threaten her. I told her the truth. What truth? What are you talking about? Jasmine had been waiting for this moment. She'd rehearsed it in her mind a dozen times. Marcus, I need to tell you something about the baby. Something important. His voice changed, became wary. What about the baby? I had some genetic testing done. Routine stuff. But the results showed something unexpected. Is something wrong? Is the baby okay? The baby is fine. Healthy. Strong. But the tests revealed some genetic markers that the doctors wanted to investigate further. What kind of genetic markers? The kind that tell us more about the baby's father than just a name. She paused, letting the weight settle. Marcus, this baby carries DNA that's going to matter to a lot of people. Important people. Powerful people. Jasmine, you're not making any sense. I know I'm not. And I can't explain everything over the phone. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Silence. Then, does this have to do with what you said to my mother? About having information? Yes. Jasmine, if this is some kind of game. It's not a game, Marcus. It's the truth. A truth that's going to come out whether I want it to or not. And when it does, everything changes. She took a deep breath. So here's what I'm proposing. Let's do the wedding your mother wants. 6 weeks from now. Big, public, all your family's friends and business associates. We'll make it a real show. Why? If you hate my mother so much, why agree to her plan? Because I want witnesses. I want everyone to see what happens when the truth comes out. I want your mother there, front and center, when her entire world crumbles. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. Jasmine, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Because the woman you abandoned 6 months ago? She's gone. And the woman who's about to become your wife? She's someone you've never met before. She hung up before he could respond. Then she pulled out the manila folder from Dr. Chen's office and looked at the genetic test results one more time. The results that proved this baby was Marcus's biological child, there was no question about that. But the results also proved something else. Something that Ruth had discovered through her connections. Something that traced back through Marcus's own family tree, through his father's bloodline, through generations of secrets and lies. This baby carried genetic markers that linked directly to one of the wealthiest, most powerful families in New York City. A family that Diane Patterson had deliberately hidden her connection to. A family that didn't know Marcus's father, Diane's late husband, had been their relative. A family that, once they knew about this baby, would want to claim it as their own. And Diane, who had spent 30 years hiding her husband's true parentage to avoid being overshadowed by his powerful relatives, was about to watch all her careful construction collapse. Because Jasmine wasn't just carrying Marcus's baby. She was carrying the heir to a fortune that Diane had been keeping secret for decades. Ruth had uncovered it all, the hidden birth certificates, the payoffs, the deliberate severing of family ties. And now Jasmine held the proof in her hands. The wedding wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be a reckoning. Back to the wedding reception. Jasmine stood in the center of the Sterling Hotel ballroom, her white dress wrinkled, her belly prominent at 8 months, surrounded by 300 people who couldn't look away. Marcus stood 5 feet from her, his face a mixture of confusion and growing dread. His mother, Diane, had risen from her seat at the head table, her purple dress perfectly pressed, her expression tightly controlled. The room was silent except for the whisper of fabric, the click of phone cameras, the quiet buzz of people recording what was about to become the most talked about wedding disaster of the year. You want the truth? Jasmine asked, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. You want to know what secret I've been carrying for the past 2 months? Jasmine, please, Marcus said quietly. Whatever you're about to do, think about. Think about what? My reputation? The one you destroyed when you kicked me out? Or maybe I should think about your reputation. The one your mother has been so desperately trying to protect? She reached into the hidden pocket of her dress and pulled out the manila folder. The one from Dr. Chen's office. The one containing genetic test results, medical documentation, and a truth that was about to detonate like a bomb. This baby is yours, Marcus. The DNA proves it. You're the biological father. Your mother was wrong about that. Relief flooded Marcus's face. Then what? But what your mother didn't tell you, Jasmine continued, her voice rising, is that this baby carries genetic markers that trace back through your father's bloodline. Markers that connect to a family your mother has been hiding from for 30 years. Diane went rigid. Jasmine, you don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Jasmine turned to face her mother-in-law directly. Should I tell everyone here about Richard Patterson? About his real family? About the relatives you've been pretending don't exist since the day he died? The whispers erupted into full conversations. People were leaning forward, phones out, recording everything. Marcus looked between his mother and Jasmine. What is she talking about, Mom? She's talking nonsense. She's clearly unstable. I'm talking about the Castellanos, Jasmine said clearly. The name hung in the air like smoke. Several people in the room gasped. Others looked confused. But a few, the older guests, the ones who'd been in New York high society for decades, went pale. Marcus frowned. The Castellanos? The real estate family? Not just real estate, Jasmine said. The Castellanos own half of Manhattan, Hotels, apartment buildings, commercial properties worth billions. They're one of the most powerful families in New York. She looked at Diane. And your father, Marcus's grandfather, was Antonio Castellano's younger brother. The room exploded. Oh my God. Is that true? The Castellanos? Diane's carefully controlled expression cracked. That's a lie. A vicious lie. It's not a lie. Jasmine pulled documents from the folder. I have your late husband's birth certificate. The original one, before you had it changed. Richard Anthony Castellano, born 1965, son of Marco Castellano and Linda Hayes. Marco was Antonio Castellano's brother. She held up the paper so the front row could see it. Marcus stumbled backward, grabbing a chair for support. Dad was a Castellano? Your father was the son of Marco Castellano, who was disowned by the family in 1964 for marrying a woman they didn't approve of, Linda Hayes, a waitress from Queens. Jasmine's voice was steady now, almost clinical. When Marco died in a car accident in 1989, Antonio Castellano tried to reconnect with Richard. Offered him a place in the family business, access to the family fortune. But someone convinced Richard to refuse. She looked directly at Diane. You convinced him. Because you knew that if Richard reconnected with the Castellanos, you'd be just another wife from a modest background. You'd be overshadowed by their wealth, their power, their society connections. So you made Richard cut all ties. You had his birth certificate changed, his record sealed. You spent 30 years pretending the Castellanos didn't exist. Diane's hands were shaking. Richard made his own choices. Richard died 15 years ago, and you've been keeping this secret ever since. You built your entire identity on being a self-made woman, a successful lawyer who came from nothing. But the truth is you had access to billions and chose to hide it because you wanted to be in control. Marcus's face had lost all color. Mom, is this true? Diane opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in her life, she had no answer. But here's the part you didn't anticipate, Jasmine continued. She placed her hand on her belly. This baby carries Castellano DNA. Genetic markers that can be traced directly back to Antonio Castellano's bloodline. And when the Castellanos find out, and they will find out, because I'm making sure of it, they're going to want to claim this child. No. Diane's voice was barely a whisper. You can't. I already did. 3 weeks ago, I contacted the Castellano family attorney. I provided the genetic test results, the birth certificates, the documentation proving Richard was Marco's son. They ran their own DNA analysis using samples from family members. Jasmine pulled out another document. This is a letter from Antonio Castellano himself. He's 87 years old now, no children of his own, and he just found out he has a great-grandchild on the way. She began to read aloud. To Ms. Jasmine Robinson. I have reviewed the documentation you provided regarding Richard Castellano, my nephew, and the genetic analysis confirming your unborn child carries our family bloodline. I am heartbroken to learn that Richard died without my knowledge, and that he was kept from his family for so many years. However, I am overjoyed to discover that his legacy continues through his grandson. As the last surviving member of my generation, it is my duty and honor to ensure that this child is welcomed into the Castellano family and provided with all the advantages that come with our name. I would like to meet with you at your earliest convenience to discuss arrangements for the child's future. Our family attorney will be in touch regarding a trust fund, educational provisions, and your own financial security. This child is a Castellano. And Castellanos take care of their own. Respectfully. Antonio Castellano. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Then, slowly, heads began to turn toward the entrance. Because standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits, was an elderly man with silver hair, sharp eyes, and an air of unmistakable authority. Antonio Castellano had come to the wedding. Jasmine had called him that morning. Mr. Castellano, I need you to do something for me. Something that will seem strange, but I promise it's necessary. What do you need, my dear? I need you to come to my wedding. And I need you to arrive at exactly 7:30. Your wedding? To Marco's grandson? Yes. But it's not what you think. This wedding is a trap set by Diane Patterson. She's been planning to take my baby from me. And I'm going to stop her in front of everyone she knows. There was a pause, then Antonio laughed, a deep, rich sound. You remind me of my late wife. She was a fighter too. What time did you say? 7:30. And Mr. Castellano? Bring your lawyers. Oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Now, as Antonio Castellano walked into the ballroom, people scrambled to their feet. He was a legend. A titan of New York real estate. A man who'd built an empire from nothing and ruled it with an iron fist for 60 years. His presence commanded respect, fear, awe. He walked directly to Jasmine, ignoring everyone else in the room. Jasmine Robinson? His voice was warm despite his intimidating appearance. Mr. Castellano. Thank you for coming. Thank you for finding me. For telling me about my nephew's son. For carrying my family's future. He looked at her belly with genuine emotion. May I? Jasmine nodded. Antonio placed his hand gently on her stomach. The baby kicked, strong and sure. Antonio's eyes filled with tears. A fighter. Just like his great-great-grandfather. He looked up at Jasmine. You have given me something I thought I'd lost, hope for the future. Then he turned to face Marcus and Diane. You must be Marcus, Antonio said. My grandnephew. You look like your father. He was a good man, from what I remember. I tried to reconnect with him years ago, after my brother died. But someone convinced him to refuse. His gaze moved to Diane, who looked like she might faint. Diane Patterson. I've heard a great deal about you in the past 3 weeks. My attorneys have been very thorough. Antonio's voice turned cold. You kept my nephew from his family. You erased his heritage. You denied him his birthright and his connection to the people who loved him. I did what was best for Richard. You did what was best for yourself. Antonio cut her off. And now, you plan to take this child from its mother so you could maintain control over the Castellano bloodline without actually acknowledging the Castellano name. That's not, I never. My attorneys have the emails, Mrs. Patterson. The ones you sent to your son about temporary arrangements and custody strategies. The ones where you explicitly discussed separating Jasmine from her baby after the birth. Antonio's expression was granite. Did you really think you could manipulate my family's heir without consequences? Marcus finally found his voice. Wait. Heir? What are you talking about? Antonio turned to his grandnephew. I'm 87 years old, Marcus. I never had children. My brother Marco, your grandfather, was killed before you were born. Your father, Richard, was the only family I had left, and I lost him without ever getting to know him. He gestured to Jasmine's belly. This child is the first Castellano to be born in over 40 years. The first heir to the family name and fortune. How much? Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. The Castellano estate is worth approximately $4.3 billion, one of Antonio's attorneys said calmly. Properties, investments, businesses. All of it held in trust for family members. The number echoed through the ballroom like thunder. Marcus looked at his mother, comprehension dawning. You knew. You knew we were connected to this, and you hid it from Dad. From me. From everyone. I protected us. You protected yourself. Marcus's voice cracked. Dad could have had a relationship with his uncle. I could have known my grandfather's family. But you were too proud, too controlling. I did what I thought was right. You did what kept you in control. Marcus turned to Jasmine, his expression devastated. And when she found out you were pregnant, she saw a threat. Because this baby would be a Castellano. And she couldn't stand the thought of being connected to a family she'd spent 30 years denying. Jasmine said nothing. She just watched as the truth unraveled everything Diane had built. Antonio pulled an envelope from his suit jacket. Jasmine, my attorneys have prepared documents establishing a trust fund for the baby. $20 million, accessible when the child turns 18, with annual allowances for education and care before then. He handed her the envelope. We've also prepared a separate account for you, $5 million to ensure you never have to depend on anyone again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Additionally, Antonio continued, the Castellano family would like to formally acknowledge this child as a member of our family. With your permission, of course. We have no interest in taking your baby from you. We only wish to provide support, protection, and a connection to their heritage. Jasmine's hands trembled as she took the envelope. Thank you. That's all I ever wanted. For my baby to be safe and loved. Then we understand each other. Antonio smiled. And for what it's worth, young lady, you have the spine of a Castellano. You're going to fit right in. He turned back to Diane, and his smile vanished. As for you, Mrs. Patterson. My attorneys will be reviewing every piece of communication you've had regarding custody plans for this child. If we find any evidence that you plan to interfere with Jasmine's parental rights, we will pursue legal action. The Castellano family protects its own. Diane's face crumbled. 30 years of careful construction, of image management, of control, all of it destroyed in minutes. Marcus, she reached for her son. Marcus, please, you have to understand. But Marcus stepped away from her. I don't want to understand. I don't want to hear your excuses. He looked at Jasmine. I'm sorry. For everything. For abandoning you, for believing my mother's lies, for thinking I could manipulate you into a fake marriage. His voice broke. You deserved so much better than me. Jasmine looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in weeks. She saw what she'd always seen, a weak man controlled by a strong mother. A man who chose comfort over courage, every single time. Yes, she said simply. I did deserve better. And now I have it. She turned to Antonio. Mr. Castellano, would you mind escorting me out of here? I think I'm done with this wedding. Antonio offered his arm. It would be my honor. As they walked toward the exit, Keisha rushed to Jasmine's side. Her mother and grandmother weren't far behind. They formed a protective circle around her, these women who'd stood by her when she had nothing. Behind them, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Guests arguing, phones ringing, people shouting questions at Diane and Marcus. The perfect society wedding had become a spectacular disaster, and everyone wanted to know more. But Jasmine didn't look back. She walked out of that ballroom with her head high, her hand on her belly, protected by people who actually loved her. The fairy tale was dead. But something better, something real, was just beginning. Outside, in the cool evening air, Antonio's car was waiting. A sleek black Mercedes with a driver and enough room for Jasmine and her family. Where would you like to go? Antonio asked gently. Jasmine looked at her mother, her grandmother, Keisha. The women who'd carried her through the darkest months of her life. Home, she said. I want to go home. Then home it is. Antonio helped her into the car, then turned to his attorneys. Make sure Ms. Robinson has everything she needs. Security, medical care, legal protection. I want her and that baby safe. Already arranged, sir. As the car pulled away from the Sterling Hotel, Jasmine allowed herself one look back. Through the glass doors, she could see Marcus standing alone in the ballroom, abandoned by his mother, betrayed by his own choices. Diane was surrounded by people, probably trying to explain, to justify, to control the narrative one more time. But it was over. The secrets were out. The truth had won. And Jasmine, the woman they'd underestimated, dismissed, tried to destroy, had emerged victorious. What are you thinking? Her mother asked softly. Jasmine placed both hands on her belly, feeling the baby kick strong and sure. "I'm thinking," she said, "that this baby is going to be born into a world where they're loved, protected, and valued. Not because of what they can give people, but because of who they are." "And you?" Keisha asked. "What about you?" Jasmine smiled, a real smile, the first genuine one in months. "I'm thinking that I just became a Castellano. And Castellanos don't need anyone's permission to be powerful." The baby kicked again, as if in agreement. In the front seat, Antonio laughed. "Oh yes. You're definitely family." As the car drove through the Manhattan streets, heading back to Queens, back to the small house where Jasmine had been rebuilt from broken pieces, she finally allowed herself to feel it. Not happiness, not yet. But hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. The kind of hope that comes after surviving the worst and discovering you're stronger than you ever knew. The kind of hope that builds futures. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the wedding, probably multiple someones, had recorded the entire confrontation. By midnight, #Castellano wedding was trending on Twitter. By morning, it had hit the local news. By afternoon, national outlets were picking it up. Pregnant bride exposes mother-in-law's decades-long secret at her own wedding. Billionaire real estate mogul crashes wedding to claim hidden heir. The wedding explosion that revealed a $4 billion family secret. Jasmine woke up in her childhood bedroom to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. She ignored all of them except one, from Antonio's attorney, confirming that the trust documents had been filed and her personal account was active. $5 million. She checked her bank app 3 times to make sure it was real. It was real. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "Baby? You awake?" "Yeah, Mama." "Come in." Patricia entered with a cup of tea and sat on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Relieved. Kind of numb." Jasmine accepted the tea. "Is it as crazy out there as I think it is?" "Crazier. There are reporters on the street. 3 of them. They want interviews." Patricia shook her head in wonder. "My daughter, mixed up with billionaires. I still can't believe it. I can barely believe it myself. That man, Antonio, he seems kind. Despite all his money. He is kind. He loved his brother. He would have loved Marcus's father if he'd been given the chance." Jasmine sipped the tea. Diane stole that from both of them. All because she wanted to be in control. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Are you scared?" "Of what comes next?" "Terrified," Jasmine admitted. "But I'm not alone anymore. That's the difference." A text came through on her phone. From Keisha, "Girl, have you seen the news? You're famous. Call me." Then another, from a number she didn't recognize, "This is Marcus. Please. I need to talk to you. I'm so sorry. For everything." She deleted it without responding. Then another, "Jasmine, this is Diane. We need to discuss this situation privately. What you did last night was cruel and unnecessary. Call me so we can reach a reasonable arrangement." Jasmine laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Even now, even after everything, Diane thought she could negotiate. Thought she could manage this like a business deal. She forwarded the message to Antonio's attorney with a note, "FYI, Diane is already trying to manipulate the situation." The response came back within minutes, "Thank you. We're monitoring all communication. Do not respond to her directly. Let us handle it." By Monday morning, the consequences had begun to ripple outward. Marcus called her from his mother's house. She didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. "Jasmine, it's me. I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I don't deserve it. But I need you to know, I left. I packed my things and I left my mother's house. I can't be around her right now." His voice cracked. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. My whole life, my identity, it was all built on my mother's deception. He paused, breathing heavily. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what you went through when I abandoned you. That feeling of having your whole world collapse. That's what I'm feeling right now. Another pause. I'm going to sign whatever papers you want. Custody, support, whatever. I'll do a DNA test to confirm paternity, and then I'll step back. You and the Castellanos can give this baby everything I can't. Everything they deserve. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm sorry, Jasmine. I'm so fucking sorry. You were right. I'm a coward. I've always been a coward. The voicemail ended. Jasmine played it twice, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just a hollow acknowledgement that Marcus had finally seen himself clearly. Diane's world collapsed faster. By Tuesday, 3 of her biggest clients had fired her law firm, citing reputation concerns. Her partners called an emergency meeting. The whispers in her professional circles were vicious. Did you hear? Diane Patterson kept her husband from $1 billion inheritance. She tried to steal that poor girl's baby. The emails are real. I saw them. She was planning to file for custody the moment the child was born. Antonio Castellano personally called her a manipulator in front of 300 people. Diane had spent 30 years building her reputation as a powerful, ethical attorney who'd overcome humble beginnings. In 48 hours, that reputation was ashes. She tried to control the narrative. Released a statement through a PR firm. I acted in what I believed were my son's best interests. Any allegations of improper conduct are false and defamatory. But the internet had the emails. Had the videos. Had Antonio Castellano's word against hers. And Antonio Castellano didn't lose. On Wednesday, Diane showed up at Patricia's house. Jasmine was in the living room with her grandmother when the doorbell rang. Patricia answered it, then immediately tried to close the door. Please. Diane's voice was desperate. Please, I just need 5 minutes. You need to leave, Patricia said firmly. Mrs. Robinson, I'm begging you. Let me speak to your daughter. Jasmine appeared in the doorway. It's okay, Mama. Let her in. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but she stepped aside. Diane entered, and Jasmine was shocked by her appearance. The polished, controlled woman from the wedding was gone. Diane's hair was pulled back messily, her face bare of makeup, her clothes wrinkled. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Thank you, Diane said quietly. You have 5 minutes. They sat in the living room, Diane on one side, Jasmine on the other, with Patricia and Dorothy flanking Jasmine like bodyguards. I came to apologize, Diane began. I don't want your apology. I know. But I need to give it anyway. Diane's hands twisted in her lap. What you said at the wedding, about me hiding Richard's family, about trying to control everything, it was all true. And I need you to understand why. I don't care why. My parents were alcoholics, Diane continued, her voice shaking. I grew up in poverty. Real poverty. The kind where you don't eat some days. Where you wear the same clothes to school every week and kids make fun of you. Where you watch your mother choose vodka over rent. Jasmine said nothing. I put myself through college and law school. I built a career from nothing. When I met Richard, he was just a regular guy from a regular family. We were equals. We built our life together. Diane's eyes filled with tears. Then Antonio Castellano showed up and offered Richard everything. Money, connections, a place in one of New York's most powerful families. And I knew if Richard accepted, I'd become invisible. Just another wife who'd married up. All my accomplishments would be erased. So you made him refuse. I convinced him we didn't need their money. That we were better off building our own legacy. Diane wiped her eyes. And for years, it worked. We were happy. Richard had a good career. Marcus was born. We had a nice life. Until Richard died and you had to maintain the lie alone. Yes. Diane's voice broke. I told myself I was protecting Marcus.